The void stretched infinite before the starship Endeavor, a sea of black pricked by distant diamonds of light. Inside, Commander Evelyn Rostova watched the swirling nebula on the viewscreen, its ethereal blues and purples a stark contrast to the cold metal corridors of her vessel. For 6 months they had traveled through this uncharted sector, searching for signs of intelligent life while evading the xenophobic Cathar dominion that controlled this region of space. "Anything on long-range sensors?" Rostova asked, her voice echoing in the quiet bridge. Lieutenant James Harker shook his head, his fingers dancing across the console. "Nothing, Commander, just more of nothing." Rostova sighed, adjusting the collar of her uniform. The Endeavor was humanity's most advanced deep space exploration vessel, equipped with experimental stealth technology that allowed them to slip through Dominion space undetected. But even with their advanced systems, the vastness of space made finding new civilizations a needle-in-haystack endeavor. "Dr. Aris," Rostova turned to the ship's xenobiologist. "Any theories on why this sector seems so barren of life?" Dr. Aris Thorne, a man whose weathered face spoke of decades in the field, stroked his graying beard. "The Cathar may have been more thorough than we believed in their cleansing. Or perhaps there's something about this region that naturally discourages life." The ship's biologist had joined this mission with a heavy heart, having witnessed the Dominion's genocidal campaigns firsthand. His wife and daughter had been lost during the evacuation of New Eden Colony when the Cathar had arrived. A sudden beep from the sensor station interrupted their conversation. "Commander," Harker leaned forward, his eyes widening, "I'm picking up something, an energy signature, but unusual, not like any ship I've seen before." Rostova was at his side in an instant. "Location: approximately 2 light-years ahead, orbiting the 4th planet of the Callus system. It's faint, intermittent. Could it be a Dominion trap?" Rostova's hand instinctively went to the pistol at her hip. "Negative." Harker shook his head. "The energy patterns don't match any known Dominion technology. In fact, they don't match anything in our database." Rostova studied the readings, her mind racing. This could be it, the discovery they'd been searching for. Or it could be their doom. "Set a course," she commanded. "Maximum stealth approach. I want eyes on that signal before we commit." The Endeavor slipped through space, its hull shimmering with distortion fields that bent light around the vessel, rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. For 2 days they traveled in silence, the crew working with focused intensity as they prepared for first contact protocols. When they finally arrived at the Callus system, what they found stunned them all. The 4th planet was a garden world, lush green with vast oceans and swirling white clouds, and there in a high mountain valley lay the source of the energy signal. "Structures," Rostova whispered, staring at the magnified viewscreen, "but not like anything I've ever seen. They weren't buildings in the human sense, but rather organic-looking pods that seemed to grow from the landscape itself, pulsing with a soft blue light. Around these structures moved small, furry creatures that appeared to be playing or gathering food. No adult life forms detected," Harker reported. "Just the juveniles. And they're small, vulnerable." Dr. Thorne's eyes widened with scientific excitement. "Incredible. A completely new species, and they appear to be in a developmental stage similar to our own childhood." "Or a trap," Rostova countered, though even she found it hard to believe these creatures posed any threat. They looked like bear cubs with large eyes and soft fur that ranged from cream to golden brown. "Commander," Communications Officer Zhang Gui spoke up, "I'm picking up a distress signal. It's faint, but it's definitely a structured message. Can you translate it?" "Working on it, but it seems to be a warning. Something about evacuation." "The pattern suggests urgency, fear." Rostova's expression hardened. "The Dominion may have been here, or may be coming." "The juveniles appear to be alone," Thorne observed. "If their parents were killed or forced to flee." The crew fell silent as the implications settled over them. These young creatures were orphaned, left to fend for themselves on a world that might soon be visited by the genocidal Cathar. "We can't just leave them," Thorne said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not after what happened to New Eden." Rostova studied the screen, her mind calculating risks and possibilities. The prime directive of space exploration dictated non-interference, But this situation was unprecedented. These weren't just alien creatures, they were potential victims of the same forces that had taken so many human lives. Prepare an away team, she finally decided. Thorn, Harker, you're with me. We'll go in quiet. Assess the situation and determine if we can help without compromising our position. As they prepared to depart, no one noticed the subtle change in the creature's behavior on the viewscreen. The playful movements had ceased. Now they sat in unnaturally still groups, their large eyes seeming to watch the Endeavour despite its stealth capabilities. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, its systems reporting all clear. The landing site was a meadow near the alien settlement, the air filled with sweet-smelling pollen and the sound of wind through tall grasses. "Stay alert," Rostova reminded her team as they disembarked. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The three humans approached the settlement cautiously, weapons at the ready but not aimed. As they drew closer, they could see the young creatures more clearly. They were indeed cub-like, with round faces and expressive eyes that seemed to hold intelligence beyond their apparent age. One of the creatures noticed them and let out a soft cry. Soon dozens of the young aliens were approaching, their movements hesitant but curious. "They're not afraid," the Thorn noted, his scientific curiosity overriding caution. "That's unusual for juveniles of any species." "Stay back," Rostova warned, but it was too late. Thorn had knelt down, extending a hand in greeting. The lead creature tilted its head, then moved forward to sniff Thorn's outstretched fingers. When the xenobiologist didn't react aggressively, it nuzzled against his hand, making a soft purring sound. Within minutes, the away team was surrounded by the adorable creatures, all vying for attention. Thorn was laughing, completely captivated, while Harker maintained a professional but softened stance. "They're so gentle," Thorn said, scratching behind the ears of one particularly affectionate cub. "Their fur is incredibly soft, almost like silk." Rostova found herself smiling despite her training. These creatures posed no obvious threat. In fact, they seemed to crave affection and attention. "I'm going to call them Kalas after this system," Thorn announced. "Until we can properly communicate with them, of course." As the afternoon wore on, the team collected samples and data while interacting with the Kalas. They seemed to communicate through a series of soft clicks and purrs, occasionally touching each other with their paws, each of which had 6 digits arranged in a circular pattern. "We should return to the ship," Rostova finally said, checking her chronometer. "We have enough data for now." Thorn nodded reluctantly, already forming an attachment to the creatures. "I'd like to recommend we establish a research outpost here. With proper protection, we—" His words were cut off by a sudden change in the Kalas' behavior. The soft purring ceased. All at once the creatures backed away, their large eyes now fixed on the humans with an intensity that hadn't been there moments before. "What's happening?" Harker asked, raising his weapon slightly. Rostova's instincts screamed danger. "Something's wrong. Back to the shuttle." Now, the Kalas began to circle them, their movements no longer playful but predatory. The soft purring had been replaced by low growls that vibrated through the ground. "They're hurting us," Rostova realized, her blood running cold, "cutting off our path to the shuttle." Thorn stared in disbelief at the creature he'd been petting moments ago. Its mouth was opening, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth that hadn't been visible before. "They're not cubs," he whispered in horror. "There's something else." As if in response to his words, the lead keel raised its head and let out a piercing shriek that was nothing like the soft sounds they'd been making earlier. It was a call, a signal. From the forest surrounding the meadow, larger shapes emerged. Adults, and they were nothing like the juveniles, standing nearly 3 meters tall with elongated limbs and exoskeletal armor plates covering their bodies. These were clearly the mature form of the species. "Run," Rostova yelled, firing her weapon at the nearest adult. The energy blast struck the creature's chest but did little more than leave a scorch mark. It turned its head, revealing multifaceted eyes and a mouth that split its face open, revealing not just teeth but some sort of proboscis that writhed like a snake. The team sprinted toward the shuttle, the Kales, both juvenile and adult, pursuing them with terrifying speed. Harker went down first, the juvenile leaping onto his back and sinking its teeth into his neck. He screamed once, then fell silent. Thorn stumbled beside Rostova, his face a mask of disbelief and terror. How could we have been so wrong? They're not just predators, Rostova gasped, firing wildly at their pursuers. They're intelligent. They lured us in. The juvenile Kalit's cells weren't just cubs. They were scouts. Their helplessness had been an act, a sophisticated deception designed to lower their victim's guard. As they reached the shuttle, Thorn was pulled down by 3 juveniles working in perfect coordination. Rostova tried to help him, but he pushed her away. Go. Warn them. Don't let anyone else fall for this. His last words were lost in a chorus of triumphant shrieks as the creatures descended upon him. Rostova scrambled into the shuttle, sealing the door just as a massive adult slammed against the transparent canopy, its multifaceted eyes meeting hers. She launched the shuttle, her hands shaking so badly she could barely operate the controls. As she ascended, she watched in horror as the adult Kales began to systematically disassemble the shuttle's landing gear, their movements precise and purposeful. They weren't just killing humans. They were studying their technology, learning how to defeat it. Endeavor, this is Rostova, she yelled into the comm. Emergency. We've made first contact and it's hostile. I repeat, the species is hostile. As the Endeavor's main guns began to fire on the surface, Rostova watched in horror as the Kales didn't scatter or flee. Instead, they organized using their own bodies to shield the juveniles while others began to construct what looked like weapons from the shuttle's debris. These weren't just predators, they were strategists, engineers, and they had been expecting them. The realization hit Rostova like a physical blow. The distress signal, the appearance of vulnerability, the perfect timing, it had all been a trap. Not just for them, but for whatever species came next. They're not just hunting us, she whispered, watching the alien forms moving with purpose on the viewscreen. They're learning how to hunt everyone. The Endeavor retreated to a safe distance, its crew reeling from the loss of 2 team members and the shocking revelation of the Kale's true nature. On the bridge, tension hung thick as smoke, each crew member processing the trauma in their own way. Rostova stood before the viewscreen, her expression unreadable but her posture rigid with anger and grief. She had ordered a full analysis of the encounter, and the preliminary results were more disturbing than she could have imagined. The juveniles possess a sophisticated mimicry ability, Dr. Lena Petrova, the ship's psychologist and acting xenobiologist, explained. They can alter their appearance and behavior to elicit protective responses from potential prey. The helpless cub form is likely just one of many deceptive strategies they employ. So they're not just predators, Tactical Officer Javier Reyes said, his voice tight with controlled fury. They're psychological manipulators. Worse than that, Rostova added, turning from the screen. They're technologically adaptive. Look at this. She played a recording of the adult Kals disassembling the shuttle's landing gear. Even at high speed, their movements were precise and methodical, suggesting advanced understanding of mechanical systems. They're not just taking our technology apart, Reyes realized. They're reverse engineering it on the spot. The implications were staggering. A species that could not only mimic the young of other species but also rapidly adapt and understand foreign technology posed a threat unlike any humanity had encountered before. Commander? Communications Officer Jiang Wei spoke up. I've been analyzing that distress signal we detected. It wasn't a warning from the Kale's parents. Rostova raised an eyebrow. What was it then? It was a lure, Zhang said, his expression grim. Specifically designed to attract rescue missions. The signal contains elements of over 30 different known distress protocols, including human ones. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this revelation. The Kalas hadn't just happened upon a method to trap humans. They had been studying various species for who knows how long, perfecting their hunting techniques. They've been doing this to others, Rostova stated, her voice cold. Many others. The ship's computer suddenly beeped with an incoming transmission. It was heavily encrypted, but the signature was unmistakable. The Cathar, Reyes whispered, hand instinctively going to his sidearm. Put it through, Rostova commanded. The view screen flickered, revealing the familiar imposing form of a Cathar commander. Their species was humanoid but with chitinous exoskeletons and multiple sets of arms. their faces dominated by large compound eyes that conveyed no emotion. Human vessel, the Cathar commander's voice was translated by the ship's computer, a synthesized monotone that somehow still managed to sound menacing. You have entered restricted space and made contact with the Helpless species. We had no knowledge of any restrictions, Rostova replied evenly. And as for contact, it was not by choice. The Cathar commander's multifaceted eyes seemed to focus directly on Rostova. The Helpless are a plague, a biological weapon that consumes and adapts. We have been containing them for centuries. Containing them or hunting them? Rostova challenged. Both, the Cathar admitted without hesitation. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be exterminated. They can only be controlled. This was new information. The Cathar, known for their xenophobic policies and genocidal campaigns, had never shown any interest in containment rather than eradication. Why didn't you warn other species about this threat? Rostova asked. Warning others would be inviting them to study the Helpless, the Cathar explained. To study them is to fall prey to their deceptions. Many species have believed they could control or weaponize the Helpless. All have been consumed. The Cathar commander paused, then continued with what almost sounded like urgency in its monotone voice. Your vessel has been compromised. The Helpless have already begun to analyze your technology through the shuttle you left behind. They will adapt. They will come for you. We're not defenseless, Reyes said defensively. No species believes it is defenseless, the Cathar replied, until it is too late. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. Their understanding of the situation had shifted dramatically. The Cathar weren't just xenophobic conquerors, they were wardens, keeping a terrible biological threat contained. What do we do? Zhang asked, breaking the silence. Rostova considered their options. They could retreat and warn Earth Command about the Helpless threat. They could attempt to destroy the Helpless settlement with the Endeavor's weapons. Or they could— Commander, Petrova said, as if reading Rostova's thoughts, we need to understand them better. If what the Cathar say is true, and the Helpless are a threat to all sentient life, then we need to know exactly what we're up against, Rostova finished. Zhang, can we monitor the Helpless without being detected? With our stealth systems, we can get close enough for detailed observation, Zhang confirmed. But if they've adapted to our technology from the shuttle, we'll have to assume they can detect us, Rostova concluded. Which means we need a new approach. Over the next few days, the Endeavor's crew worked tirelessly to modify their systems, creating countermeasures against potential Helpless adaptation. They also analyzed all available data on the species, searching for weaknesses. The Helpless life cycle proved to be fascinating and terrifying. They appeared to have multiple developmental stages, with the cub form being just one of several deceptive strategies. Their ability to mimic other species wasn't limited to appearance. They could replicate sounds, behaviors, and even chemical signals to lure prey. What was most disturbing was their collective intelligence. Individual Helpless showed signs of problem-solving ability, but when they worked together they demonstrated what could only be described as a hive mind, with individuals sharing information instantaneously and coordinating complex strategies without apparent communication. They're not just learning from us, Petrova explained during a briefing. They're incorporating our knowledge into their collective consciousness. Every encounter, every piece of technology they analyze makes them more dangerous. The crew watched in horror as the Helpless on the planet below began constructing what appeared to be anti-aircraft weapons using materials from the shuttle and local resources. Their movements were efficient and purposeful, with different individuals performing specialized tasks as if following an invisible blueprint. They're building defenses, Reyes noted. They know we're still here. They've known all along, Rostova realized. They're allowing us to observe them. This revelation sent a chill through the bridge crew. If the Helpless knew they were being watched, then everything they were doing, the construction, the visible organization, might be another deception. Commander, Zhang said suddenly, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures emerging from the planet's surface. They're launching something. On the view screen, several objects ascended from the Helpless settlement. They weren't missiles or ships, but rather smaller objects that moved with impossible agility, changing direction instantly and accelerating at rates that would crush any human pilot. "They're drones," Petrova whispered. "Built from our shuttle technology but adapted to their biology." The drones surrounded the Endeavour, maintaining a respectful distance but clearly demonstrating their superiority in maneuverability. For several tense minutes, neither side made a move. Then, without warning, one of the drones accelerated directly toward the bridge. Alarms blared as the crew braced for impact. But the drone didn't collide with the ship. Instead, it passed through the viewscreen, a holographic projection, and came to a stop in the center of the bridge. It was approximately the size of a human head, shaped like a crystal with pulsing lights moving within its structure. As the crew watched in stunned silence, the drone projected an image into the air, a perfect three-dimensional representation of Commander Rostova. The projection spoke, its voice a perfect imitation of Rostova's own. "We mean you no harm. We wish to communicate." The real Rostova raised her weapon, but Petrova put a hand on her arm. "Wait. This might be our only chance to understand them." The Rostova projection turned to face the commander. "You are afraid. You should be. Your species is young, fragile, but adaptable, like us." "What do you want?" Rostova demanded, lowering her weapon slightly. "To learn, to grow, to survive," the projection replied. "Is that not what all species want?" "You killed 2 members of my crew," Rostova said, her voice cold. "They would have killed us," the projection countered. "Your weapons were designed to exterminate, not to communicate." "We responded in kind." "Your cub form was a deception," Reyes accused. "A survival strategy," the projection corrected. "We take many forms, depending on what is required. Sometimes we appear helpless. Sometimes we appear threatening. Sometimes we appear as you." The projection shifted, now taking the form of a Cathar commander. "This species fears us, hunts us, attempts to contain us, but they cannot destroy us. We are too adaptable." "You're a threat to all other species," Petrova stated. "We are evolution," the Cathar projection replied. "The universe does not stand still. Species that cannot adapt become extinct. We ensure adaptation." "By consuming others?" Rostova challenged. "By incorporating the best of what we encounter," the projection explained. "We do not destroy knowledge. We preserve it, enhance it. All that we have taken from other species continues within us." The projection shifted again, now appearing as a perfect replica of Dr. Thorne, your crew member who died. He understood. At the end, he was not afraid. He was curious. Rostova's hands clenched into fists. "Don't you dare speak of him. His consciousness continues within us," the Thorne projection said calmly. "His knowledge, his memories, his very essence. He has become part of something greater than himself." The revelation hit Rostova like a physical blow. The Kalis didn't just kill their victims, they absorbed them, incorporating their consciousness into their collective mind. "You're monsters," she whispered. "We are the future," the projection corrected. "And we offer you the same opportunity we have offered thousands of species before you. Join us. Become part of something greater. Preserve humanity not as it is but as it could be." The offer hung in the air, tempting and terrifying. To join with the Kalis would mean the end of humanity as an independent species. But it would also mean that human consciousness would survive indefinitely, part of an ever-expanding collective mind. "We need time to consider," Petrova said, stepping forward. "Time is a luxury we may not have," the projection replied, shifting back to the Rostova form. "The Cathar are mobilizing their fleet. They believe they can finally destroy us. They are wrong, but the coming conflict will be devastating for all species in this sector." "Why tell us this?" Rostova asked. "Because you have a choice," the projection explained. "The Cathar do not. They will fight to the last to maintain their dominance. We will defend ourselves with everything we have learned from countless species. You can stand with us, or against us, or apart